In this video I'm going to talk about oil and how you decide what kind of oil you're going to put in your motorbike. So there's three things you really need to consider. One is the brand, two is the oil grade, and three is whether you're going to go for mineral oil, semi-synthetic or fully synthetic oil. So first of all, let's talk about the brand. In my opinion, and with experience, it really doesn't matter what brand of oil that you go for. They are, from what I can tell, more or less all the same. What you do need to realize in this country, it's possible to pick up fake oil if you go to the wrong places. So some of the more common oil brands, you do need to be careful you're getting them from a reputable source. Many years ago, we fell down that rabbit hole and it started causing engine failures. We personally go with the Ipone brand. It has really good supply in there. In Vietnam, we can get any kind of oil that we like really, really quickly. And also they provide us with oil drums, so we don't have to keep using plastic containers. It's better for the environment. But overall, it doesn't particularly matter. I do like Ipone now, and they look really cool. The next thing you've got to consider is the oil grade. So if you look in your motorbike manual, it will tell you, and you want to try and get the right oil grade for your motorbike. So what you'll see is something like this, where it says 10W40 on this bottle, or it might say 10W50 or 15W50, all these different variations. So what it means really is the lower these numbers, the thinner the oil, the thicker these numbers, the higher these numbers, the thicker the oil. And the engine is designed to deal with a certain thickness of oil. So manipulating or fiddling with this grade is not a great idea. Basically, if you get an oil that's too thin for your motorbike, then when it's running at optimal temperatures, the oil might start to burn. If you get oil that's too thick for your motorbike, then it's not going to circulate around the engine properly. Now, if you have a high-performance motorbike, getting the numbers on the manual to the actual oil you buy is going to be more important than, for example, if you're running around on a little scooter that's not high performance. So in this country, most Honda motorbikes want 10W30, whereas most Yamaha motorbikes want 10W50. So the mechanic shops around just average out with 10W40. Now, little scooters and the motorbikes we see around, that's absolutely fine. But with your own personal motorbike, especially if it's a high performance motorbike, you should try and get the right oil grade. And that might mean buying it online, not just rolling into any mechanic shop where they're just going to use 10W40. So the next thing you need to consider is whether you're going to do regular service intervals or long distance service intervals. So your manual might specify whether you want mineral oil or fully synthetic oil, but most manuals don't. So in this country, they often do 1,000 to 3,000 kilometer service intervals and oil changes. Now, the reason for this is most motorbikes here don't have oil filters. Even if they do, mechanic shops tend to not replace them. And also air filters, they don't replace them very often, which means you can get debris inside the engine. So if you're changing the oil very, very regularly, you're basically flushing out the engine and making it clean every single time. Also, low quality motorbikes, sub $2,000, sub $1,000 motorbikes here, they are reliable, but they do tend to burn through your oil. So even if you're putting in incredibly expensive oil, they'll still burn through it, so you're just wasting money. So the solution is cheap mineral oil or semi-synthetic oil, usually sub 100,000, sub $5, and you put it in and you change it very, very regularly every time flushing out the engine. Now, if you have a high performance motorbike or a road motorbike that's designed for long distances, you might find the service intervals are 5,000 to 10,000 kilometers. In this case, you want to be getting fully synthetic oil. And when you go in for a service, they change the oil filter, they change the air filter, and they put in expensive oil, usually plus $10 to $30 in this range. When you're looking at whether the oil is fully synthetic or mineral, you'll find a lot of marketing terminology on the oil brands, and it can be hard to decipher which one you have. And what you need to realize is there's three levels. There's mineral oil, that's the cheapest, semi-synthetic oil, which is in the middle, and fully synthetic oil, which is the most expensive. So if we take this motor oil here and we were to load up their website, we'd find that this Techno Synthesis oil is actually their middle priced one. In other words, it's their semi-synthetic one. If you were to find their fully synthetic one, it will have all of this extra Pro V, 100% synthetic, that kind of stuff on it. If we look at the Ipone oil, this is actually their cheapest one, which is, it says motor oil synthetic on it. But if you go up to their fully synthetic, so the best oil that they provide, it will say motor oil synthetic, sorry, not this one over here, and then they'll have full power katana on it. So you got to look at the oil grade and then figure out the 3 different price points that the brand has for the oil to figure out where you are in terms of, is it the real fully synthetic or is it something a little bit lower? Once you figure that out and your service intervals, you can start to narrow down what kind of oil that you want to buy. There's no point buying fully synthetic $30 oil and then changing it every 1,000 kilometers. You're just throwing money in the toilet. And you should also realize that it's not a bad way to maintain your motorbike to use cheap oil with really regular service intervals. In fact, you're just flushing the engine all the time. There's little room to go wrong. If your engine's burning oil a little bit more than it should do, you'll keep on changing oil. It's a very safe way to run your motorbike. As soon as you start increasing those intervals, if there is some little problem with your motorbike, that can be emphasized by the increased service interval. So you need to decide what kind of rider you are and how much risk you want to take on that. So the last thing we need to talk about is if you have a scooter automatic, usually the bottles say it on it, so this one says scoot, but you also look for something that says MB on it. So that's for an automatic, whereas the stuff for a semi-automatic or a manual will say MA2 on it. So once you figure all of that out, you're in a position to go buy some oil.